After 7 months of following our way, Muhammad has still not seen any change when it comes to his sleep, although his mind is clear. To me, this sounded like a very common blind spot, and seeing it can truly help Muhammad and anyone else in this place to leave the struggle and finally find peaceful sleep. Welcome to this episode of Mining the Comments, in which we will go over a very common blind spot, one that I've seen many, many times. And I hope this will help you, Mohammed, who left a comment on a recent video, and anyone else who's been in this place of really, really studying our way, spending months reading my books, following the YouTube channel, maybe being part of our programs even, and just having the sense that I understand everything. I know everything. My mind is clear. I'm not worried anymore, but nothing has changed when it comes to the night. The sleep-wise things are still the same. Very common scenario, and we're going to go over, of course, how to meet this. But first, let us look at the actual comment here from Mohammed. It is a comment on the most recent success story with Claire, and Mohammed said, "Hi, Daniel. I've been following your teaching now almost 7 months. My headspace is clear, but insomnia is still the same. I feel I'm stuck. Do you have any video about stages of recovery?" Actually, first, to answer the question of stages of recovery, I think there is one, but I think it's outdated. And I have actually worked on this. So for next Insomnia Insight episode, we'll do that one. We'll do the stages of recovery. However, what I sensed, and maybe I'm taking a little bit of liberty here interpreting Muhammad, but when I read this comment, I thought, okay, what Muhammad is saying is that his head is clear, his headspace is clear, which is that, you have understanding, you're like, I understand exactly what's happening. I've been studying this for a long time. And I'm also thinking, like, when you say like my mind space is clear, like I'm not so worried or frazzled or concerned anymore. But when I heard insomnia is still the same, to me that means like, but nothing has changed like sleep wise, right? So on one hand, we can think of the entire insomnia experience as like sleeping little, but also like worrying a lot, having a lot of strong emotions and somatic experiences and all these things. But we can also think of just like insomnia as like sleeping less. And I think this is what Muhammad means, that overall things have gotten easier in terms of like thoughts, emotions, and not so worried about things anymore, understanding more, but nothing has changed sleep-wise. Okay, and this is a common situation. So let's go over this, and I call this this phase of the journey, if you will, the missing puzzle piece, or the situation is like, I think of it as like the missing puzzle piece, because what you glean from this comment from Muhammad is that he has a sense that I'm missing something. There is something I don't understand. Is this just part of the journey, or what am I not seeing here that will take me to where I want to be, a place where I'm sleeping well, So instead of doing my usual style where I have like different sections, I wanted to do this more of a story, if you will, where we can imagine that, we've had this real struggle with sleep. We feel like we've lost sleep or lost the ability to sleep. Sleep is nowhere to be found. And we stumbled upon teachings like the ones we have here. And that is when you start the journey towards more sleep, and you start the journey with education, right? And we learn, for example, about the gas and brake model, which explains how sleep is regulated. And that clarifies things. We see like, oh, there's not like 100 million things that impact sleep. It's just like sleep drive and hyperarousal, that's it. And that leads to kind of clarification. We worry less. But we may still see that, okay, but sleep didn't change. So we continue the journey, and we understand, for example, sleep efforts. Now we start to understand that the more things we do to sleep, the less we sleep, right? So we stop using those blackout curtains. Maybe we stop using our supplements, and we don't do like sleep hygiene religiously or things of that nature. We see that these were sleep efforts. We'll leave them, but sleep doesn't change either. It still doesn't change. Like there's no difference in the night. And things continue like this with like months of like reading, watching, studying, and that leads to like a real like intellectual understanding of things, and the mind can feel clear, and we have less understanding, more understanding and less anxiety. but sleep doesn't change. I've even heard from some students to say that I have like my mind is like perfectly clear. I don't have any anxiety, right? I understand every little concept, every teaching you have, I understand it, but nothing has changed when it comes to the night. And this can feel like, like putting down the pieces to a puzzle that, our thinking is that, okay, I found like a real source of information here. And every little teaching is kind of a piece of the puzzle, and completing this puzzle will lead to me sleeping more, and we put down a piece, and we do see like we're a little bit less worried. We put down another piece, we have more clarity of mind. We put down another piece, and things get a little bit easier for us. But sleep doesn't change, and therefore we can logically conclude that there must be a piece to the puzzle missing, because if we weren't missing a piece, then why would we not see any change when it comes to our sleep? And this is the time now to look at what is the blind spot here. And feel free to pause this video and think through this and think about, like, what are we missing here? What's the blind spot here? Why is somebody like in Mohammed's place, for example, not seeing sleep change despite having a wealth of understanding and knowledge and insight? And this to me is the blind spot. The blind spot is, it can be very obvious when you see it, but we can totally miss it as well. And that is that also, like, we started this journey here. The journey started towards like, we got to get more sleep with education. And the blind spot is this, that actually the motivation, the goal, what we hope to achieve has really been sleeping more, getting more hours, having more consolidated sleep. Something like that has ultimately always been the goal throughout these months of learning and of looking inside and taking this journey. That has actually always been the goal. And as it all, as something that remains true, in our world, is that when that is the goal, then it becomes tricky, because sleep is effortless. It is passive. It's automatic. And when it becomes a goal, then nothing changes. When sleep is a goal, then we will not see things change sleep-wise. Now, there is some really, really nice things here, though. Good news is, if you recognize yourself in Mohammed's place, you have learned a lot, right? Even though that hasn't translated in you sleeping more, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. You have an incredible foundation of knowledge, right? And now that you see this blind spot, that can be a real aha moment. That can be like when things click and you're like, oh my gosh, it was so obvious now that I see it, but in reality, this is true. I have spent all this time learning, educating myself, but the goal has always been to sleep more. And when you just see that blind spot, it can make everything click in a different way. You can contextualize everything in a different way, where like, there is no goal of achieving more sleep, and then things will really change. And something that can help with that is to see that having a clear mind, being less anxious, seeing that you can do everything you want to, even if you sleep little. You can live your life even if you sleep little. That is wonderful, right? And you can see essentially that you don't need to find that missing piece of the puzzle. Like, things are, you've seen things improve a lot thanks to education, and that's wonderful. And then when you're no longer going like, oh, I have to find the missing piece to this puzzle so that I sleep more, because you no longer have sleep as a goal, you stop looking for that missing puzzle piece. Then guess what happens when sleep is no longer a goal? Sleep starts to happen by itself. You sleep more thanks to not trying to sleep more, and all this actually leads you to a place where you see that there was actually never a missing piece to the puzzle. Like, there was never anything wrong with you. There was never anything missing. It was just some ideas in our mind, like a misunderstanding in our mind. This mislabeling of not sleeping as a threat. That's all there was. There was never anything missing. And when you stop looking for that last piece to the puzzle, you can see you never needed anything else. You never needed anything. But that, with that said, what you learned through this journey, I think will help not only with sleep, but with life at large. Let's conclude there. Let me know what you thought in the comment section. Thanks, Mohammed, for asking, and I'm rooting for you. Bye, everyone. Hi, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I hope that you found a ton of value in the video that you just saw. Now, if somebody would ask me, hey, Daniel, what do you think would really help somebody who has tuned in to a lot of the videos, who understands a lot, but who's just not seeing things change for them? I would say contextualization, discourse, to talk to somebody who understands what you've been going through, that you can ask questions to, get a reply, ask a follow-up question, get another reply, etc. That conversation so often starts to clarify things and really kickstarts your journey towards peaceful sleep. And one way you can have such a conversation is by booking a call with one of our coaches. In fact, you can head over to our website, thesleepcourseschool.com, and you can see which coaches offer calls and check out their individual success story to see if their story relates with you, and you find that connection that leads you to see that this is a person that I could work with. This is a person I would talk to. And then you can book a call, and that could be what really kickstarts your journey to where you want to be.